Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 98. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, I have no idea what I'm getting into right now. Our good friend Salima, she wrote me. She's like, "You need to have this person on." I was like, "All right, I trust you." So I have a very loose understanding. It's not disrespectful. I understand how talented you are. I know nothing about you, so please name and who you are.
Well, my name is Zenon. I am a local artist here in the city. I would classify my music as alternative R&B.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like, you've seen a couple of these.
Of them, yeah.
So you kind of understand what's about to happen. What I find fascinating sitting across from artists is just they usually have their stories they're so different, and that's why I love sitting down with artists.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You hear so many different life experiences and how they shape us and how they lead us to, kind of where we are today. And I definitely think that everybody has their own path that's so unique and so interesting to learn about. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, and I think what's for me, like I never really fit into a spot. Like school, I was just never, I had my like things that I did, but I didn't really fit this like path, this like career path. And that's why I think I really connect with artists, because they also don't fit the traditional path.
Oh yeah.
And that's why these are really fun for me, because I'm like, see, if I would have had somebody like you talking to me when I was a youngster, I'd be like, okay, this is kind of normal to want to go down a different way. So anyways, that's my random spiel, that why I enjoy sitting down with artists.
Well, awesome.
So this would be great. So take it back as far as you want to go. I'd love to know like how you grew up, where you grew up. Obviously, we're going to get into music, which is going to be rad for me.
Sweet.
So, just take it back as far as you want to go.
All right. Well, I was born and raised here in Calgary.
No shit. Really?
Yes, born and raised.
Awesome.
I love it here. It's, it's home. And when I was pretty young, I started in music right away. It's always been, like, if we're going to take it back as far as I was doing music.
We have no clocks. We have no timers. So I want you to, like, take it where it feels very natural.
All right. Well, when I was probably around the age of, I think, like 4 or 6, I started in the Calgary Girls Choir here, which I don't even know if they're actually still around today.
They gotta be.
I assume they are. Yeah. But it was all like very classical choir training, and it was fun. I was a kid, so I kind of didn't really know. I was like, this is a fun thing that I'm going to do and meet some friends. And my parents wanted to get me into after school activities.
Okay.
And it was great. I had some wonderful teachers, made some wonderful memories. But it was classical music, and so there was a little bit more of like a regimented thing to it, definitely.
Sorry, why do you think why'd your parents want to put you in music? Do they have a background, or was there? Well,
I don't know if it necessarily was my parents wanted to put me in music. I honestly would have to ask them that, because my parents are, I'll just start by saying, my biggest supporters, which I am very, very blessed to have that. I know that, that's not always the case when you're an artist.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that maybe they had some input, but I loved music as a kid, and they are also huge music lovers. My dad plays the harmonica like an absolute beast. And my mom, she's got Caribbean blood, so music and dancing it's in her. And growing up, music was all over the house always. Like if there was a moment of silence, it was surprising. Yeah. So maybe they had kind of like a little bit of an agenda. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I know that, because they've always been so supportive and I've always loved music, I wanted to do choir as well. So
do you remember pre-choir, like the music you were hearing around the house?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Music that I would hear around my house was literally everything, like all the time. We listened to a lot of world music. One of my dad's favorite artists is Salif Keita, which is an African artist. Okay. We listen to like blues, like B.B. King. My parents are big blues fans. I didn't listen to a lot of like the Caribbean style music growing up, but there was definitely those influences that kind of got like woven into what we were listening to. Yeah. Also, then once I got a little bit older, I started listening to pop and stuff like that, and kind of fused my own way in there. Yep. But it was always everything as a kid, but a lot of world music actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I took you off the path already.
No, it's okay. That's great.
Yeah. So choir. So this is early. You started choir.
Yeah, very early. I think I started at the age of 4. And in choir it was great. I was having a good time, but I felt like I was kind of missing an element. And even though I was a young kid, I remember kind of feeling like I want to do more on stage. Like it's fun to sing, but I feel like I was kind of like trapped literally in between rows of children.
It's all squealing.
Exactly, yeah. And we had to sing like exactly this and do exactly this.
Yeah.
So I think once I got a little bit older, maybe around like 7 or 8, I started doing theater. Yeah. And theater became my one true love.
No way.
Yeah, for a really long time.
So at that age, I have no idea, but at that age, what are where is it like theater houses, like these kind of, like where do you take theater at that age?
Yeah, so when I was that young, it was a lot of summer camps. And so there was one summer camp that I spent almost every summer at called CYPT. It was the Calgary Young People's Theatre.
Okay.
I don't know if they're still around.
Got you.
Yeah, and then also the Epcor Center, which is now where Arts Commons is based out of. Did a lot of summer camps there. And they were just like theater summer programs where they would put a bunch of kids who needed somewhere to go in the summertime, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And we would put on productions, big or small. I remember with CYPT, it was run out of like an old fire hall building, I'm pretty sure, off of 16th Ave.
Okay.
And it was like the dinkiest little plays. But they were really, really fun. We would just like make them up as the kids too. Like the
Cool.
volunteers and the instructors would like let us kind of just go with our whims as children. And then some, they would obviously like bring back some structure to it. And then at the end of the summer, I vaguely remember the programs were maybe like a month long, maybe 2 months. At the end of them, we would put on a production for all of our parents.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why, when you say it was like your true love, what was it about that environment that like brought you alive?
It was the stage. It was the stage.
Like, and you like being at the front of the stage
Yeah.
with some lights on you.
Yeah. It was always that like feeling of being able to stand there and like all eyes are on me. And it's interesting because like as a kid, you have no conception of like fears and inhibitions like that. And so it felt really natural to me. I didn't even start thinking about like the nervous parts and aspects of this whole loving the stage thing, honestly, until I was, a lot older in like high school. We'll get there.
Totally, which is different because I think even you say it like so like confidently that I didn't understand how to be shy or be nervous. I was like the exact opposite.
Oh yeah.
I was so shy from like day one. So that idea from any age till today is like freaks the hell out of me. So
yeah, I was a really outgoing kid. Things have changed a little bit. I think I had a shift when I was again like up in high school and college.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was very loud. Very loud child. I would get in trouble a lot, especially in class.
No way. Just like
she's actually just a little bit too loud in class and we need to take it down a notch. It's distracting to the other kids. But I guess that, translated well into theater.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That just like being on that stage and being able to project my voice too was always a really good thing to have for theater.
So what happens after this like 7-8-year-old theater class? What else is going on in your life?
It's so interesting. I was thinking about this on the drive home yesterday and I was like, do I even remember being a child? Which is so interesting.
But that's a very interesting thought because if somebody were to flip the script on me, I would have a tough time. There's a lot of years. There's a few moments I remember.
Yeah.
And some like personality traits, but detail-wise, I'm pretty vague.
Yeah, like I know that at the same time I was young, and so my parents were getting me involved in the things that they enjoyed too. So one of the things was skiing. My parents were avid skiers, so we did that in the winter, which was always fun. I have absolutely no funds to do that as an adult. But I really enjoyed it as a kid. It was fun.
Yep.
Got me outside. My parents are very active people. And so biking, I'm an only child. So I did everything either with my parents or with my stuffed animals.
Safe spot.
Yeah. I really enjoyed reading as a kid too.
Yep.
I definitely think that a lot of that stuff was fun, but it always has come back to music for me. Yeah, because even when I was doing the theater, I started eventually doing musical theater, and that translated definitely back into music pretty nicely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So like junior high.
Junior high. I went to Branton, which is a French immersion junior high here.
Where is it? What's it called, sorry?
Branton. Yeah, it's in the Northwest.
Okay.
My mom, she was, although born in the Caribbean, she was raised in Montreal, and so she really wanted me to learn French as a child and as an adult, to know a second language, especially considering Canada is bilingual.
There's that.
Yeah. So junior high was junior high. Like I don't even remember really like enjoying a lot of school. School was never the top of my mind.
What was the top? Like if it wasn't school, was it just being anything outside of those walls?
I definitely think that music was always top of my mind. When I was in junior high, I was kind of boy crazy. If I'm being 100% honest,
Oh,
like
that's good.
I look back on my journals as a
still
young
have
teen.
them?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is great. They're fun to read every once in a while.
But it was boy driven.
Yeah, I would just like write about my like random crushes in my random classes.
Have you written those into songs by chance yet?
You know, I haven't really explored it. No.
So it's not a no.
It's not a no, you know, maybe one day, but some of them are just so ridiculous. Like I'm sure they have some good material.
Some one-liners.
Yeah, just like one here and there. But I definitely think as like a cohesive whole, it's probably a little bit dramatic and ridiculous. Yeah, and then I had some really good friends when I was in junior high. Followed a lot of my friends from elementary school to junior high, because we all were in a French immersion elementary as well. And so we all went to the same school, that whole like it's in your area or your sector or whatever.
Those friendships, have they kind of lasted the test of time?
Not at all.
Just like a moment in time.
Yeah. I don't think I'm friends with any of the people I was friends with in junior high, and I only have one of the same friends I had from high school.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think there's something really beautiful about that too, because I definitely think that building those relationships, obviously they shape who we are as people.
Yep.
And there's so many people that I remember having like such good times with in junior high and high school. And it was always so fun and it was always so ridiculous. And although we, aren't close now, I still really cherish a lot of those memories.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's there's just so many different experiences to have through those years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just
some are up, some are down, some are sideways.
it's all of it all the time. Musically, at those ages between like junior high school, are you doing things like outside of school? Are you like high school choir style, or what are you up to?
Yeah, so junior high actually is when I'm still doing a lot of the musical theater summer camps, like in the summertime.
And like lead stuff, like.
Yeah, so I remember the one that we did at the Ep Center. I'm fairly certain I was in junior high. We did a musical called Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you know that one? I love that musical. I think to this day it's still one of my favorites. And I played the shopkeep owner, Mr. Mushnick. Yeah, so that was one. I was one of the Three Amigos also when we did the Three Amigos.
Awesome.
Yeah, and actually at the end of elementary school, we also put on a play at my school, a musical, and I was Jasmine in Jasmine and Aladdin. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, so it definitely carried through. Those roles were really, really important to me, and I loved it. Yeah.
So junior high is like, junior high school is like a lot of things outside of school, like just being involved in the music world outside of school.
Yeah, junior high I also joined the Youth Singers of Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're a triple threat group in the city, singing, acting, and dancing. And they're I don't know if you've heard of the Young Canadians.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're like rivals.
Oh, no way.
Same kind of thing.
And performing in the similar like circles and.
Yeah, definitely. So every spring and every winter, Youth Singers would put on like a big production at the Jubilee. Yeah, and so we did like the Nutcracker one year. And then with youth singers, it was a little bit more vague because it was really about the singing and the dancing. And then in between there was the acting. And the acting roles with that group went a lot to the older kids just because that's kind of how it worked with the company. So I joined in junior high and I stuck around until I think the end of junior high. I might have actually joined in elementary school now that I think about it, but stuck around for a long time.
And what was it? It just filled you up? Like it was just...
Yeah, I think that as a kid, I was always just so quiet otherwise. Like I was outgoing and like loud and bubbly, but there was like this internal part of me, kind of like what you were saying earlier, that you didn't feel like you fit in. And so although I was like putting on kind of like a mask and like making all these friends and being so outgoing and bubbly, I still felt this like really weird shyness about me. It's almost like a nervousness. Like I definitely would classify myself as an anxious person. And so when I was a kid, it came out as like anxiety, as like loud and bubbly, and I have to be fun for all of my friends, right? So because I still felt that, when I was doing like singing and dancing, it was just like all of those things went away. Like everything, none of those things mattered anymore. And I was just comfortable being able to sing and use my voice in a way that was easier for me, right? And so I think that's why it carried on for so long throughout my life, and why it really kept pulling me back.
So why'd you leave that group? What was the end there, and where'd you go?
So I left the Youth Singers of Calgary at the end of junior high because I had to go to high school. And when I was making my decision on what high school to go to, I was kind of like, okay, I can either go to my designated high school, which was Aberhart, or I can go to a new high school and pursue an arts program. So Central Memorial High School has something called the Performing Visual Arts program. So you can do theater, you can do choir, you can do dance, and you can do visual arts. Yeah.
Cool.
It's actually a great program, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, when I went, and I had a lot of fun with it. And so I decided to not go to my designated, which also meant stopping French. And I decided to pursue that program at Central. And also as a result, because I was pursuing that program, it required more of that outside school time. Because the program is implemented into your regular curriculum at the high school, but they also, if you're going to be in the productions and you're going to get involved, you have to take that after school time and put it towards that. And so I had to quit Youth Singers because of it, because I just didn't feel like I was going to be able to balance it all.
When you, high school is an interesting time, as you're trying to find yourself.
Definitely.
And, you're exposed, you're in a new school, a new area, but to be surrounded by, or to have a bunch of creatives around, feels like a different environment than like a traditional high school. Like when I went to high school, which was like way before you, there was like, there wasn't the option to go to like a creative environment. So did it fuel you? Did it cause like chaos? Like,
I feel like high school was a weird time. I got very depressed in high school. And I think it's because that's when my perspective kind of started shifting. I was talking about earlier, as a kid, you're so inhibition free. None of those nerves and things really exist externally. And when I got to high school, puberty and all that other stuff in between kind of started really coming into play, and I started getting really outwardly anxious. And that's when I kind of started retreating a little bit more. And I wasn't, because people were now no longer being like, oh, like Zenon is the loud, funny kid. Now they were like, oh, Zenon is the annoying, loud kid. And because of that, I was kind of like, oh man, like this is not, I don't feel good about this anymore. And so I feel like that was kind of a distraction from being able to really revel in the environment of those creatives. Because I definitely think that if I wasn't so internally focused on that kind of sad, solemn feeling, it would have been a really, really great, like kind of push and guidance further into it. But because I didn't feel necessarily fully accepted by everyone, and, kind of also, like you mentioned, it was a new school. And so I didn't bring any of my old friends. I had to meet completely new people too. It definitely, I think, hindered some of that some of that creativity and that drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were you still like all in on the idea, like music, performing? Did that start to,
Waver.
yeah, just because you're what you're going through and just the
Yeah, I definitely think it started to waver a little bit, but I also feel like it was kind of like a shift in focus too, because I started thinking about the fact that I was in high school too, and that after high school you got to go to college. And so when I started high school, it was like all of these different emotions of like, I no longer have my friends. I have to start thinking possibly about my future. I'm trying to meet new people. I'm feeling really not like I don't have the same support system, and people aren't, I guess per se liking the mask I felt like I was putting on as much. And then on top of that, I still want to pursue this art thing, and I still want to pursue this performance, but as just, I think as like teenagers, there's so much going on anyway that, that naturally you're kind of questioning things. I feel like that's where the age of questioning begins.
Yep.
And so I was definitely kind of like, I don't know, like, is this what I want to do? But I was also still having a lot of fun doing the productions and meeting the people that were involved in the program with me. Like the one person that I'm still friends with from high school, it's because we like stuck to each other like glue on the first day. He came up to me. I was like kind of to myself on the bleachers, and he was like, "Hey, my name's Emmett, and nice to meet you." And I was like, "Oh my God, someone's talking to me." Thank goodness. Because I was feeling like that personality of being outgoing was no longer working for me.
Right.
So that was really good because, we kind of had each other's backs throughout high school, and he was also in the theater program with me. So we were able to do a lot of that stuff together, which was great.
Are you working during any of this? Like, did you have to like get a job through high school or anything?
No. So my parents, again, bless their hearts, I have really supportive parents. Every time I was like, all my friends have jobs, maybe I should get a job, my mom would actually say to me, "You don't need to have a job. You need to be a kid."
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that like now as an adult, I'm like, wow, that was extremely, extremely lucky of me to have. Yeah. And so my parents wouldn't let me get a job, actually.
Great. To just be a kid.
Yeah. They were like, just enjoy it. Just have fun. Which was amazing. And, that's what I was trying to have fun. But some of those other things were coming into play too. But it was still, like some of the productions we were putting on when I was in high school were a little bit more in depth than the stuff I was doing in summer camps previous to that.
Yep.
And so, they would pick like a specific play or musical, and then they would split the kids so that, because some of the, not all kids can sing and dance. Nor do they want to. Yeah. Some of the kids are like, I don't really want to sing and dance, so don't make me, because I'm in high school and it's awkward and weird. So they would split us into the theater and then into the musical theater.
Okay.
And so they would pick one production for each category. And I think the first year was Peter Pan. And I got to play Tiger Lily from Peter Pan. And that was actually the first moment in my life that I realized that I had experienced typecasting, which I don't know. Have you heard of typecasting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like based on, maybe physical features and that, as opposed to actual abilities as an artist. But, I wasn't totally aware of it. And then I was like, wait a minute. I was Jasmine. I was a Three Amigo. Now I'm Tiger Lily. And so some of those thoughts also started to kick in for me as a kid and as a teenager. And I was like, what does this mean? Like, how does that feel to me? And I kind of started exploring a little bit more of, my mom's history as well. So those things were also kind of coming into play as a teenager, but not fully yet. I feel like I was still kind of in the dark and not totally knowing, which side of myself per se to embrace. I definitely feel like growing up, like here in Calgary, I grew up with predominantly white friends, to be honest.
Yep.
And also only my dad's side of the family. My mom has her mother. Her dad passed away when she was quite young, and then she has a brother. And at that time, they were living in Montreal. I think my grandmother moved here, it's got to be like almost 15 years ago now.
Yep.
So then that's when she entered my life. And I was like, more so, we visited her when I was a kid, but I didn't see her as much. And I kind of got introduced a little bit more to, my mom's side of her heritage and her side of the family. So she, and, I mentioned the Caribbean, she was born in Trinidad and Tobago. And so getting a little bit of exposure to that through my grandmother also started coming into play.
Yep.
And then kind of these thoughts of like, where do I sit as a person? And as a teenager, I don't even think I knew what biracial was. But in my head, I was like, okay, I'm not brown, but I'm also not white. There's like something in the middle here. And that then also kind of started rolling into me feeling more like I didn't belong and more of that, like, oh man, like what direction am I going? And I kind of felt like just like floating in the middle of this like weird feeling.
Yep.
Yeah. I still think I'm navigating that, to be honest.
It's and to have like, those are heavy questions, obviously, at a young age, to like try and figure those out, plus all the other things that are going on.
Yeah.
It makes sense why someone could feel a little lost or kind of...
Definitely.
Yeah, because that's a lot going on at a young age.
Yeah, yeah. And at the time, I was just like, oh, I'm so sad and I'm so depressed and I don't know what's going on. Because as a teenager, I didn't really know what that looked like.
Well, nobody really talks about it, right?
Exactly. Especially, I definitely think that even when I was in high school, it wasn't as prevalent to talk about as it is today, too. Sure. Like, I definitely think that, with Gen Z, I look at Gen Z and I'm like, you go. Like, hell yeah. You guys are talking about the shit that we did not talk about when I was even a teenager, let alone, like, my parents as teenagers.
Totally.
Yeah, so that was kind of what was all going on in high school at the time.
So what happens after that? Perfect segue, by the way.
Oh, great.
Fucking teed that up.
So after, I'm getting ready to graduate high school and I have to pick a college. But, at the time, it's funny. I'm just going to like jump ahead in time a little bit.
Go wherever you want.
So I think it was like a year into college, my mom and my grandmother and a friend of hers, we did like a little mini road trip to Vancouver one summer. And I remember being on the beach with my mom and kind of like kicking around sand and being like, I don't know if I ever really wanted to go to college. And she hits me with, you didn't have to. And I was so flabbergasted. I was like, wait, that was an option? But, kind of reeling it back, I'm in high school and I'm like, I have to go to college. I didn't even think about asking my parents whether or not I had to because it's just like so ingrained in us by society that
it's a given.
It's a given. Yeah. And, I feel like a lot of parents, especially, to be honest, especially immigrant parents, there's that expectation of you're going to college or you're going to university.
Yep.
So I didn't even think it was an option to maybe not. And when I started looking into it, I was like, well, I was kind of into biology. Like, the brain fascinates me. Like, wow, it's such an incredible like tool, and also can do so much. Like, the stat, don't quote me on this, but I think the stat is we only actually access like 70 to 80% of what our brain can do, which is wild to me. I'm like, how do we get that other like 20%?
You let me know when you figure it out.
Yeah, please. But so I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And I also really enjoyed cooking. And I was like, cooking. And then I was like, okay, let's be honest. I've always done music and performance. Performance really was the thing that had always, carried me through my youth and my teenage years. And so I started looking at music colleges. There was Humber in Toronto, and then MacEwan up in Edmonton actually had a really good program. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, I don't know what else to do. And so I started applying. And a lot of these colleges, you have to have music theory training. And so I'm kind of like, all right, like I remember when I was in choir, like when I was like 6, we learned some music theory. And some of it has carried over, like performing in musical theater and stuff, but not all of it. Like I wasn't studying it really. I was more so studying like the performance aspects in theater. And so I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know music theory, but let's see what happens. So I applied to Humber. There was another college out east. I can't remember the name of it. I applied to McEwen. And then as I was researching music colleges, I came across a college in Boston, Berklee College of Music. And when I came across Berklee, I was like, this is interesting. I was like, oh my God, John Mayer went here? And then I was like, whoa, Susan Tedeschi went here. And Susan Tedeschi is like one of my favorite blues artists. And I kind of started seeing all these big names. And I was like, wow, like could I go there maybe? And so I talked to my parents about it, and they were like, whoa, like sending you to school in the States is a totally different ball game. And they were like, but if this is really what you want to do, we'll figure it out. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to apply, and I'm not even going to get in. So I applied. And when I heard back from almost every single college, they were basically like, you don't know any music theory. You got to take a proficiency theory exam. And so I did that for every college. And the majority of them came back and they were like, you're all right. Like I remember when I was at the McEwen, because we had to drive up there for me to take the exam.
Your parents, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just slide that in there.
Oh, absolutely. I know it every day. I'm glad you slid it in there again.
Yeah. Instead of you, I'll do it.
So when I was taking that exam, I remember sitting in the room. There's like maybe 20 of us in the room. And I remember writing my name and then looking at the first question and being like, I don't know the answer to this. Flipping through I think it was like a 10-page exam. Being like, I don't know any of this. So I just answered, I think like the first 2 questions on the first page and then brought it up and was like, that's it. And the guy was like, you didn't do any of the exam. And I was like, I don't know any of the answers. And he was like, all right. I think McEwen's actually the only place I didn't get in.
Wait.
Yeah. So I guess I kind of just gave away the punchline. But one night I was sitting in my bedroom and I got an email from Berklee.
Crazy.
And, I called my parents down and I was like, all right, like, we're going to find out. Like, we opened the email and I got accepted.
Because it's like, I know a little bit about this, and Berklee's like one of the places.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's...
Definitely.
Okay.
It's a bigger name.
Yeah.
I don't talk about it a lot. It goes one of two ways. Like, you go to that college to get that name on your resume and to be able to frankly use it.
Yeah.
That's and I do think it has warranted me some positions and some accolades. But I think it also comes with a little bit of a price tag, especially when it comes to interacting with other musicians. Sometimes being like, oh yeah, like I went to Berklee is not well received.
Yep.
And I think it does come back to the fact that like this industry is very saturated and it can be a little bit competitive.
For sure.
Yeah. So I don't open with, I went to Berklee.
Yeah, totally. You want to be friends?
Yeah, exactly. It's not my opening line for sure.
Huh?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I got in, but there was a caveat. I had to do a summer course before they fully accepted me for the fall semester for theory. So I took that summer course and it was kind of hell on earth. Because I was like, I kind of know some of this, but I also have no idea what I'm doing at all. Had to go through, relearn my scales, relearn, how to read like the musical staff. So like the treble clef, the bass clef, all that stuff. And then there was some ear training stuff. And I was like, oh my God, you think I have perfect pitch? Like you're going to play that note, I can sing it, but I can't tell you what the note is. But I ended up getting in and I went in the fall. And
wild.
Yeah. I feel like that's where things really begun.
Yeah. Okay. Get into this. This will be,
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, bless my parents' hearts. My mom came with me. And again, bless her heart, but she also for sure came with me because I'm her only child. And she was like, I'm not sending you to Boston alone. She was like, I will be living there for a month with you. And I'm kind of like, okay, like I don't really want you there, but also I'm really glad she was there. Yeah. Looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful you came with me and like so grateful to this day. So yeah, kickstart it, get down to Boston. I'm in the US. It's like a whole new world for me. It's honestly kind of overwhelming. And I remember like the first day of orientation, I was like, wow, remember when I was in high school, I didn't know anyone? Now I really don't know anyone. Like, they've got international students coming from like Osaka and like in Japan. They've got international students coming from Argentina. They've got lots of Canadians, and they do have like quite a few US students, but like it's a big school, right? And so I'm kind of overwhelmed on orientation, and I'm like, how is this even going to go? But, you know, I guess I kind of just like fell into it because you have to. And
it's intimidating. Are you like, you know, when you said before the industry is competitive, you know, get thrown in that environment where you're like,
oh yeah,
beside some of the who's who and like very talented people, did you feel that?
Yes. 100%. 100%.
You're looking around the room, you're like,
I'm like, oh yeah.
Am I the worst one here? But the person beside you is probably thinking the exact same thing.
Exactly. But in that moment, I'm like, I'm terrible. All these people are incredibly talented.
I'm from Calgary.
No, exactly. I'm like, this person has been like singing since they came out of the womb. I don't know.
Their mom plays and wherever, like dad plays wherever. And
there was a lot of students that had, you know, parents in music. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, there I am sitting in orientation. And then I got my roommate assignment because I was living in the dorm. As an international student, you have to live in the dorms for your first year, which I actually think is really great implementation. And I ended up meeting my first roommates, and we stayed roommates for a while, and it was great.
Yep.
I love them. Classes started, and it was a whirlwind. You know, kind of going back to the, you know, is it intimidating thing. Once those classes begun, I was kind of like, whoa, like, I don't know if I really know what I'm doing here.
I don't got this.
Yeah. Very much I don't got this. And some of those feelings of inadequacy and you know, sadness from high school kind of started creeping up a little bit again. And then also to get in front of, you know, other artists and peers and sing for them and hear what they're doing, then I'm thinking like, I shouldn't be here, right? And that I think that carried on for probably like the first year and a half.
Yep.
But as things progressed, it definitely got a little bit better. I definitely think that some of the nerves that I have on stage now, actually almost all of the nerves I have on stage now, are when I'm performing for my peers, like my fellow artists. Yeah. Because it's when I'm performing for, you know, a crowd of people, when I have no idea who's in the crowd, I'm like, I don't know if you're an artist or not. It's fine. Like I can just, it comes back to, you know, me being a kid and being on that stage. And even when I was really young, I used to go into the backyard and I would grab our like broom from the backyard and I would sing. Like I would use the sidewalk we have as like my stage catwalk.
Awesome.
And I would put on like mini concerts for the neighbors and they would sit outside and they would just watch me and they'd be like, it's like having the radio on. And it was never intimidating. Right. But then when I got to college and I was in front of these other artists, I was like, whoa.
Do they, part of the education, do they talk about managing those feelings? Like, is there...
No.
It's just all like hit your fucking note, read this properly.
Really and truly, yeah. Yeah. I was lucky enough that once I got into my second year, once you get into your second year, because you have to pick an instrument, right? And so my instrument was voice.
Okay.
And once I got into my second year, I started working with a one-on-one coach. And so grateful that the coach that I got, we clicked right away. Because, you know, sometimes they put you with a coach and you're like, oh, I got to try someone else. But we clicked really well. And she actually helped me navigate some of those feelings, which was incredible. But I definitely don't think that, like, it's not implemented into the course. Yeah. Like,
isn't that kind of weird, though?
I think so.
Like,
I think it's bad.
or is it... It's almost like that, like those hard lessons that you got to learn at a young age that kind of set you up. Because you don't want everything like easy breathe. Like, listen, talking and probably explaining where you're at is probably healthy. Yeah. But you probably don't want everything like handed to you as you like.
Oh, absolutely not.
So there's probably probably a middle ground somewhere in there.
I think there's a middle ground for sure. Yeah. Like I think especially like as international students too, like coming from. I was only coming from Canada. I couldn't imagine coming from somewhere more international. For sure. And having like the culture shock to also deal with. Yeah. So I know there was like counselors on campus. I ended up seeing one of the counselors, I think like a year in because my grandmother passed away. And so it was more so like about that. Yeah. But like they're they're college counselors. They're not necessarily, I guess it depends what you are expecting out of counseling too, right? Like I could go on a whole tangent about like mental health and stuff too.
Go wherever you want.
Because I definitely think that like mental health is something that's really important for me to advocate for, because I struggled with it, you know, I would say from like a young age of like the early junior high to like now, right? And so I do think it's really important to have those avenues and those people that you can still talk to. I definitely do agree with what you said though, right? Because you still have to learn those hard lessons. But I think that when it comes to certain things, not having anyone to go to and having someone to, you know, say things to, and even just like a sounding board can be like a really negative impact and can create this like certain sense of spiraling internally, right? Like, you know, I feel like something that I talk to my therapist all the time about now, which bless her heart also, she's very helpful. She always says, you know, you keep going into this state of like, what if? Yep. But you don't know if any of those things are going to actually happen.
You're just like, you're paralyzed by the what if.
Exactly. And so I think having that sounding board is helpful to, you know, take out of that paralysis.
Would have been a wild social experiment to actually somehow get the international students together and just have the courage to like start talking.
Yeah.
Just to like understand that there's like 7 other people in
going
this
through
room,
the same thing.
And that's it. And that might have been enough to be like, okay.
Exactly.
I'm normal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And like getting those kids together too, right?
It's tough. It's tough.
It is tough
to crack somebody like
when
when they're especially in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Like a high performing.
Yes, and
school.
highly competitive.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So what happens after year 2?
Wow. Well, let's see. I think after year two is when I got, unfortunately enough, kind of distracted, but also focused at the same time. Because, you know, just based on how the courses are lined out, you know, once you do your like basic theory and your basic, you know, group training, once you are past that in your second year, you're getting into the nitty gritty. You're getting into learning like the harmony and the like further ear training, and you're getting into your major. So I picked my major, which was songwriting. Yeah. And so then I'm getting into songwriting courses. And those are, you know, you're learning about the harmonics of songwriting. So that's like the chords and the tonal qualities and something called key colors, where, you know, you're working with different scales. Like there's the major and minor scale, but there's also Lydian and Dorian and Mixolydian and like all these things that I didn't know existed. So now it's like this beautiful world of possibilities, which is really exciting. And then I also got into the lyric writing courses. And that's where I found like another true love.
Was there any writing leading up to this?
Yeah. So I think the first song I ever wrote was in high school, and I actually performed and won the school talent show with that song.
Just slide it in there.
Just a quick little, there's my W we were talking about earlier.
Found it.
Yeah. So I wrote a song titled All I See. It's been a really long time since I've played that song and performed it actually, but I should loop it back into the set because it's actually still a really good song to this day.
Cool.
I wrote it about a boy.
I was
surprise.
I was going to ask you, but I was like, I'm just going to leave it.
Yeah. So there was that, and poetry has always been a really big part of my life. Like even when I was in like elementary school and junior high, I was writing poetry, and reading poetry as well. I have like a love-hate relationship with Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. I have 2 books of his complete works, and then I have multiple books of like the different stories, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, all those, Midsummer. I do really love Shakespeare, but I'm also like, you're a little bit problematic. So this is like my shame admittance of my love for Shakespeare. But there is also something really beautiful of like the iambic pentameter and like the way the writing flows. And so I took a lot of inspiration from those writings too. Cool. But really dove into it further when I picked my major.
And it clicked. Yeah. Like you felt it.
It clicked right away, especially lyrically, right? Some of the harmonics of songwriting I struggled with. I still struggle with. Like every once in a while I'll be sitting down writing something and be like, this chord sounds fine, but like maybe this one's better. I don't know. But the lyrics, I would definitely call myself a lyricist as well. I just feel like there's so much to be said. And when I was in high school and college, I had felt like I was struggling to say the things I need to say. And that writing and that lyricism was an easier way for me to say it. Putting it in a song. Even though it's so funny because I could read it to you and you would be like, oh yeah, like that, you're saying what you need to say, but it's so much easier if I can just sing it, right? And it just, it clicked and it flowed, and I was able to like take these stories so many stories, like even just like stories of, watching people and writing about it, or my personal experiences, or the experience of like loved ones and friends and family, and finally, put it into this cohesive song, this body of work and an art. And, I think the reason that it especially clicked is because I now also had the tools to bring it from, like 4 lines of random scattered thought and poetry into a song, right? With the tools that I was learning.
It's powerful.
Definitely powerful. Yeah. It felt good. It felt very empowering. There was one course I took. My goodness, I can't remember the name of the course now, but it had to do mainly with lyric writing, and it was with Paula Cole. She's a fairly popular vocalist.
I know nothing.
That's super fair.
You try, but
that's okay. I'm not here to name drop anyway. That's kind of gross. But she was a big mentor for me because she brought out a more like empathetic, emotional side to my songwriting. Because like a lot of it was clicking, but then I met her and she was like, okay, but like, cool. What were you feeling in those moments? What did you smell? What did you taste? What did you feel? What did you see? And not like feel emotionally. What did you physically feel? Right? And when I started tapping into, the way she was teaching me in the senses and connecting all those things, I was able to paint much more vivid imagery and songs.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like just everything's on fire.
Everything is on fire. But then on the flip side of things, I had mentioned that I was kind of getting distracted too.
Yeah.
I had fell in and met some people outside of my school that were not great for me.
Yeah.
I developed like an unfortunate relationship with someone, and it was fairly negative. And so it was like this weird like unbalanced scale of like, all of these things are falling into place and clicking, and my music and my artistry is so beautiful. But there was this person and these relationships that were like kind of weighing me down, and I was feeling like those things were getting heavier. Granted, I wrote a lot of good stuff about it.
It's so, you hear about, from the outside, you hear the stories of people being put in bad situations and the gold they come up with and for their artistry is like profound.
Yeah.
It's just shitty. You got to go through it to actually find it.
Absolutely. I actually just like last week, I did a CADA survey, Canadian Arts Development. They just like sent me an email and they were like, can you do this survey? I love surveys. I think they're very, very important. Everybody, kids, adults, do your surveys, okay? Seriously, though. Like,
I love it. It's like a public service announcement.
It really is. Like, PSA, very important to do the surveys. Like, City of Calgary, you want better communities and you want better opportunities and you want to see the future flourish. You got to fill out those damn surveys.
Fair.
So I did this survey, and one of the questions was, if you could go back and change anything in your life, would you? And I was like, whoa.
How much room was it a yes, no?
No, they give you space to write about
good.
it. Yeah. Well, it is a yes, no, and then they give you the space.
I need another sheet.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you, it's going to be a 10-page essay that I need to write about
You're
this.
welcome.
My answer is definitely no, though, because I thought about it and reflected, and I was like, although I had these, like some of these negative relationships and experiences, they shaped me, right? And you learn from those things, and you get to create from those things and evolve from those things. And evolution is something that's also really important to me, because I don't really believe that people change, but I do believe that we evolve. Granted, you're in a situation where things aren't going well, and yet also my artistry is on fire.
Yep.
And it feels like this like negative downward spiral. But then when you come out on the other side of it, you've evolved, right? Those experiences shaped you and molded you into something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a wild card if you will get out of those situations. That, you know, like
It really is.
your story here, we can sit here, smile, and like
Totally.
and talk, and then there's the other side where,
Yeah.
you know,
Sometimes it pulls you
it doesn't
in.
work.
Sometimes it pulls you in so hard. And, you know, even after college, when I graduated and I returned to Calgary,
Secret.
I graduated. Surprise.
Not surprised. I was like, oh,
You know, actually, Berklee has a very high dropout rate.
because
Yeah.
the pressure.
The pressure and the price.
Yeah. Oh, there's that piece too.
Yeah. Especially as an international student.
Yeah.
I had to apply for quite a few grants.
Yeah.
And again, very blessed to have the support of my family.
Yeah.
But, you know, I actually finished early too because, you know, they came to me and they were like, we can't do this anymore. And I was like, all right, I'm going to took some summer
Smash this.
courses here, smash it out, finished early, which was great. But even when I came out of college after I graduated, I actually entered another unfortunate and quite abusive relationship. And so these things, they do cycle,
Yeah.
right? And it is so hard to get out of them. And it's not only hard to get out of maybe one, but it's hard to get out of the cycle of re-entering a new one.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like there's a pattern. Right? Like
There is a pattern.
Yeah.
Breaking those patterns go back to not only, you know, my own lived experience, but also like generational trauma, right? Because our ancestors really shape how we go about the world and how we move through it and navigate through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was also another unfortunate, you know, coming back. Yeah. It definitely sucked up. Like I returned in December of 2018 and it sucked up about a year of my life. Yeah. And I was just pulled into this very, very bad relationship.
And not productive? Like, was it an unproductive year for you?
Very unproductive.
Yeah.
I ended up working at a cafe doing like 4 a.m. shifts.
Gross.
Very gross.
And any musical, like,
Oh, barely.
I
just dropped it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't that, you know, that was not that long ago.
No, it wasn't. No.
But to look back on it now and be like, what the?
Absolutely. What the? Exactly. Yeah. And just like so absorbed by this other person and like what their life was. And, you know, he had a kid. And I, for some reason, just because of the relationship, I was like, I could do this. I could have a kid that's not mine. And then I was like, whoa, what was I, like 21, 22? I just like wasn't even thinking about the logistics of my life and what I wanted from it. And I was so absorbed in this relationship. It was unfortunate. I'm grateful and lucky that I came out of it though. Yeah.
Finishing school, that school in particular, when you're done, do you feel or did you feel like you could kind of go after whatever you wanted and accomplish something? Like, does it give you a sense of confidence that you were like qualified to operate in this space?
For me personally, no.
Yeah. No?
No.
Did it, what was the...
I feel like it kind of beat me down a little bit.
So when you were done, you were just like whooped.
Yeah. And, you know, actually that is something that they did talk to us about. They were like, you're going to come out of this program and you're going to be like, oh my God, I just immersed myself in a 4-year program and it was like only music all the time. This, learn this scale, do this performance, go. You're going to be burnt out.
The Berklee burnout? It's a thing?
Berklee burnout. That's actually what they call it. Yeah. Yeah. And so I felt just destroyed. Came out of it and was like, I don't want to touch music ever again. And I still like, you know, kind of like had some desire to write.
Yep.
Right? Like that was still there. But I also kind of came back to that lost feeling because not only was I leaving school and feeling burnt out, but there was a lot going on in the world. You know, while I was living in the States, Trump was elected.
Yep.
That was a really big eye opener for me. And, you know, for what I knew about politics, what I knew about the world. And it brought me back to, you know, those moments when I was in high school and I figured out that I didn't quite fit. You know, I've always felt torn, to be 100% honest, racially between, you know, my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, which up until I graduated, I still hadn't met any of her side of the family except for her mom, her brother, and her brother's one kid. Right? So I still had no connections there really. And so all of that compounded with the burnout, I think was also a really good opportunity to jump into this relationship.
For sure.
Yeah. You know,
Just get dragged down.
they say that abusers prey on the weak, right? And so I definitely think that, you know, that burnout, I wasn't feeling it. I was like, music who? It wasn't there anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. But after I came out of that relationship, I actually had the opportunity. It was interesting, actually. All of the things after I came out of that relationship, it was like this shadow cleared out of me. Like all of that was gone. And also things started to align a little bit more. I met my mom's family for the first time. I went out to Toronto and went to a wedding, got to experience that, which was incredible. I had never experienced anything culturally from her side of the family like that. And so that was very eye-opening and so fun.
It's been amazing.
It was so fun. So much dancing, like even witnessing like an Indian ceremony. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, I have a vision of what it'd be like, but I'm sure the experience is just like...
and just like so much shiny gold and silver and like everyone's dancing, everyone's having a good time. It's culturally beautiful. And then also after I had stepped out of that relationship, kind of actually near the end, just as I was getting ready to step out of it, my mom introduced me to my percussionist, Bev. They actually used to work together, which is funny.
Awesome.
And I was getting ready to finally step back into music and applied for the Road to Memphis Blues Challenge here in the city.
Okay.
And basically it's just a music competition where you get to perform, and then one winner gets chosen to go write and record and play in Memphis.
Cool.
Yeah. And I was like, this is a good introduction. You know, my mom has always been what she calls the pusher, which is funny. I'm like, not that in that sense.
The other one.
The other one. But she always calls herself the pusher because she's definitely been, you know, like the person over my shoulder to push me to do the things when I'm not feeling that spark anymore, which is another reason why I'm so grateful to have her in my life. So she kind of pushed me and was like, you should really do this. She was like, you know, you're getting out of this relationship. What are you doing with your life?
Bad question.
She's also a big realist. So it's not like a soft, like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, what are you doing with your life? And so she introduced me to my percussionist, and immediately we clicked, like right away. I was like, wow, I love this woman. She's great. She's so fun. It's a vibe. We're working. And we played the Road to Memphis Blues Challenge together.
Cool.
It was super fun. And it was the first time I'd been on stage in a while. Yeah. I had done like some random open mics here and there. But to really get on stage and like do a performance with her.
Cool.
And it was great. It was really, really good.
Like felt in your natural environment again?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's revitalizing too, right? So once I stepped back on that stage and was performing, and that confidence got reignited, and I was finally like, oh, wait a minute, this is what I'm doing. But as time went on, so that was our kickstart, and we just fell into it after that. Like after that, I quit my job at that cafe, no longer working 4 a.m. ridiculous shifts and like sleeping the rest of my life away. I started working at a consignment store, just making a little bit better money, not doing as horrible work.
Yep.
And we started gigging more, playing random shows. Like there's
Just around town here?
Yeah, just around town.
Yep.
There's an app called Stagehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they provide, some great...
Did that work good for you?
It worked really well for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really cool
Yeah.
tool for anybody, like musicians.
Definitely. And getting kick-started with it was really good. I met some other people in the industry. Dan Clapson, he runs the Blue Jays Sessions. Shout out Dan. He really had my back in that. He still does, but like first coming up, he like got me in on multiple Blue Jay sessions. I met some artists in the city, and they were at first very country oriented. He actually told me the other day while we were out for dinner that I was the first artist in the Blue Jay Sessions that wasn't a country artist.
No way.
Which I didn't know. I was like, oh, thank you, Dan.
High fives.
So, getting introduced to those people, even though it wasn't necessarily my genre, I was just stepping back into it, right? So, it's like putting your feet in really cold water and being like, I don't know yet, right? And my confidence had been fairly shaken from the relationship I was in. And also my ideas of what I wanted to do with my life had also been shaken by that relationship. And also, my changing political views, my changing outlook on the world, right? Because I'm like, 20, I'm going to be 26 this year.
Youngster.
Yeah. I'm just a baby. So when this was all happening, I think I was like 22.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was still, that frontal lobe is still developing. And so I'm still like, I don't know, like everything's weird and wonky. And I'm realizing that there's people that I don't want to surround myself with. And there's people I do, right? Mm-hmm. And so as I'm navigating that, we're getting back into music and it's really great. But I'm also still kind of shaken and still kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
So how does since you start aligning with like-minded people, kind of starts filling you up a bit, you're experiencing more opportunities that feel right. Like, does that momentum just continue?
Yeah. I don't know how. Like for me, it really does feel like things just started to align more.
Yeah.
So that momentum continued. I got some more gigs. I got more exposure.
Where were you playing around the city?
With the stagehand stuff, it was...
I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, it was just like random, like the Ampersand building,
Yep.
The library.
It's a cool building.
It is a really cool building. I actually really liked that show.
Did it sound good in there?
Fun. Yeah, it sounded really good. Yeah, really nice acoustics in there. And like the way they have like that front area set up for the people to sit.
Yeah.
It was great.
It's cool.
Yeah, and then, library shows.
Yeah.
The Ironwood a couple times. And I had also released a single. I forgot about that.
Slide it in.
So I'd released my first single, Something About. And that was probably around the end of that relationship, kind of when Bev and I were kickstarting.
Yep.
And I worked with, I actually won the Stampede Talent Search. And with that, I was able to get a free recording session.
Cool. What did that contest look like?
So the Stampede Talent Search happens during the summer.
Yeah.
I think you have to be under 24, I think.
Okay.
And so it was basically just, have a song prepared, perform the song, and then you're judged.
Where was it? Where was the competition?
It's on the Stampede grounds at the Boys Theater.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know if the Boys Theater exists anymore. We're back to that. I don't know if these things are real. It's all just a simulation in here.
Where are we? So you won that. Which that was a moment.
Technically, I came in second.
Okay.
Because the person that won was not a musician. So because they were not a musician, I got the recording session.
Cool.
Yeah, which was awesome.
Yep. Yeah. And so you record this song.
Yes.
Your first release song.
My first ever song released.
Cool.
Well, technically, it's my first solo release.
Okay.
Yeah. I released some music when I was in college with my old roommate.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's called Something About, and it's when I first wrote the song, it was actually back in college, and the title of the track was actually Alter Ego, and it was about this alter ego I felt like I had, and this different side of me that I wanted to embrace, but also felt like kind of dangerous. And it was when I was kind of like going through all that stuff with those people that I didn't feel like really aligned with what I was doing, but the song just kind of represents this it's almost like a darker side of me. So we recorded it out at OCL, which is an incredible studio.
Cool.
Yeah, super cool to have that be like my first solo experience. Very lucky. And I recorded with Spencer Chain. I think his name is Chain. I'm so sorry, Spencer, if I did that wrong.
It can't be perfect.
I should really know his name by now. Yeah, but okay. We recorded with him, and it was a great experience. He had some session musicians come in and work with us.
Awesome.
And it was cool. So I got that song out, and it was received fairly well. Because it was my first solo song, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I don't even think we marketed it really. But it was fun, and that was like even more of a Kickstarter to really get into things.
Yep.
Yeah, and then once I started meeting more people in the scene, I encountered actually someone I went to high school with, and he's a guitar player in the city. And we kind of started. He started introducing me to the people he knew here. I think he went to McEwen actually, and so through him I met some more musicians, and things were they were trickling in, and I was getting more involved in the community. And it was really good. And so through him, I met the person I recorded my second single with, Dempsey Bolton. And actually, Dempsey and I are in the studio right now recording another song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Those these recording sessions, like, are they? I obviously never experienced them, but you see like little documentaries about people making these songs in these studios. Like, does it feel like a movie when you're in there? Or does it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like that whole like main character energy, it just like really channels into those moments for sure. I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is real. Like, I'm in a studio, I'm recording. Studio, I've learned over the last couple of years that studio is not necessarily where I thrive, though. I do also attribute this a little bit to my training, but I think that when I get in the studio, I start thinking about all of the like theoretical aspects of my vocal performance. And then I get a little bit in my head. So it can be a little bit nerve-wracking for me to be in the studio too, but it's also like such a cool experience, right? Like, being able to sit in a studio and record a song, and like, it's something I wrote, and like that's so cool.
So what happens after you record these songs? Like, what's your move now? Obviously, you've been around a little bit longer. What do you do? Like, what's the goal, I guess, when you record something?
I still didn't. So thinking back at the time, I still didn't really have a goal or direction. I was kind of just like, I knew that it was building towards something, but I didn't know what that something was. I think by the time that song was out, I was maybe 23. And so I was still kind of like,
just young.
I was like, I don't know. Like, I know that I want to be a musician. Do I want to songwrite? Because when I was in college, I was like, all right, I'm going to be a songwriter. I'm going to, get involved with the Nashville people. Maybe I'll even write country music, because like I grew up listening to country music too, and I love it. But I also love R&B. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just, like, that's what I'm going to do. And then didn't do that, came back to Calgary, fell into that weird hole. Yep. So I was still lost, to be honest. Still very, very lost. If I'm being, like, really transparent, I'm only just coming out of that feeling, I would say, this year.
It's a great time to catch you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So although I'm, like, releasing this music and doing these recordings, it's like I'm putting it out there into the ether. And like maybe some ears will fall onto it. Yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling. Yeah. And then I did have my mom helping me through it. Right. Cool. Like she retired in 2022, and 2021, I think. And she's been helping me along this journey. Cool. Yeah. And so to have her as the pusher, quote unquote. Yep. She, I'm sure, might have had some ideas. Yep. And I think she could see that I was feeling lost. And so she was trying to help push me in the right direction. Do you feel like now that if you two are like working together, like whatever you phrase it, gives you some direction of things to try, or just things to reach for, or just experiences to try and find? Yeah, I definitely think in those years, for sure, that's what she was doing. I think things have shifted a little bit in the last year and a half. So now where are you? Well, right now, I feel like I'm finally, it's like that like cocoon moment for me. That's what it really feels like. Cool. Yeah. Which would be rad to timestamp this. Yeah. That's why this is a different conversation. But anyway, keep going. No, I definitely agree with what you're saying, because it feels, it's all that alignment I was talking about too, right? Like everything kind of feels like it's all aligning for me to come out of this cocoon and be like, okay, this is who I am as an artist. These are the things that I'm working towards. So I've got a single that I'm working on right now, hoping to be released next February. And this single is, it's a love story. Not everything I write is about love, but I do write a lot about love because it's such a beautiful thing. And I think the universe is so inclined towards, but against love. Like the dichotomy of love for human beings is so fascinating. And especially even for myself, because I feel like very often I can be closed off to it, and out of those experiences, like blossom these thoughts and these feelings of love, but I'm not always the most open to the idea of it. But then, I'm also able to explore that in the writing too. And as I'm, still learning, because I believe really truly we're always learning. as I'm still learning, you know, things change on my perspective, and it's just like this ever shifting, ever moving thing. So right now, that's what I'm working on. Getting more in depth into like what R&B means to me as an artist, and kind of honing and focusing on taking that trajectory and pushing it forward in my artistry.
Cool.
Because really and truly, I feel like that's where I blossom. You know, R&B is like such a beautiful style, and it's interesting because R&B is actually rhythm and blues, right? And a lot of my roots go back to blues music, and being able to take what I know of the blues and fuse it more into that like R&B style has also started to come out more in my writing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Evolving,
the evolution. It's always there.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to catch you at this time.
Yeah.
You know,
I definitely think so.
Like when I kick this thing off, I'm like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's not disrespectful. It's just I can't operate by like researching somebody and trying to figure out their story before they get here.
Right.
Because then it doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah. I think that's a great perspective to take on it, because yeah, you don't know someone unless they tell you who they really are themselves.
Yeah. And usually if you're doing the research, you just find the highlights, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
You release something on this day, you graduate on this day, like
Yeah.
all these stupid things that are just moments in time where.
Whereas the in between is where the life and the journey and
Yeah.
the beauty really happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
This has been cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It feels so weird to just like
For sure.
spew it all
I know.
out.
To some dude, just to be clear, we've never met. So
Yes.
this is like, I end the show with one question.
Yeah.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Oh man.
I emailed you this too.
Yes, you did.
just so
Just so I'm not stuck here being like, you didn't tell me that. No. I definitely think foundations is where my head goes.
Cool.
Yeah. I feel like Calgary is where my foundations are. I don't necessarily think I would say my roots, though. I feel like my roots are so all over the place. Like I feel roots in Boston. I feel roots in Trinidad, even though I've never been. I feel roots here. So I think foundation, like I built who I am here in this city, really and truly.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
The cool thing about meeting you now is because now I get to just watch to see what you do.
Definitely.
That's what this little experience is, kind of like a time capsule. And the cool thing for me is to actually look back in a decade when this thing's still sitting on YouTube. And you know, you're doing whatever the hell you're doing wherever you are. And it's going to be really cool for me to actually look back and remember these moments. So
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to look back too.
Because it's just like the evolution of it all, right?
Yeah.
The things you think about now, there's going to be elements that you still believe are still are driving you in whatever year from now. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really cool.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.